My plan tomorrow is log like 6 hours of Destiny in and then switch. That's my plan. We're gonna get right to it. We've got work to do. You play Crucible? Can I join tomorrow? Yeah, absolutely. I think Crucible will be like the most fun and quickest activity. Okay, I actually do have to get going because my mom is waiting for this. So we are gonna read a chapter of this book. It's gonna be so much fun. Okay, so this is Murder at the Black Cat Cafe, and we're on chapter 3. Until about a week ago, or to be more precise, until the 14th of this month, 3 people were living here: the owner and his wife, and another woman. And then there were another 2 who worked here but lived elsewhere. Referring to the family register and a copy of the civil register he had found in the council office, Hasegawa went on to explain everything in more or less the following terms. The owners were called Daigo and Oshige Itojima. According to the family register, Daigo was 42, while his wife Oshige was 29. They had taken over the cafe in July 1946, that is, in the summer of last year, and, looking at the change of residence certificate that Hasegawa found in the council office, it appeared that Daigo had previously been living in Nagano, while Oshige had resided separately in Yokohama. Before that, it seemed they had both been living in China. Mind chat, and especially of a thank you. No, I'm not, Archie. Thank you for the recap, Julio. Well, so 2 of them are returnees. It certainly looks that way, sir, and here's what I found about Okimi. That's the living girl, by the way. Daigo Itojima was not the typical kind of man to run a business like this. A little on the portly side, he had a ready, kindly face, and he was always smiling. He may not have been the sharpest, but he had a laid back approach to work. But he still managed everything himself, from bartending to cooking, and from buying in stock to running errands. As for the proprietress proprietress of the Black Cat is a cafe. Control, it's a book. Whenever I tune in to hear and see you. Well, thank you. Welcome in. As for the proprietress of the Black Cat, Oshige, she was listed in both the family register and the municipal register as being 29, but in fact she looked a little older than that. This probably has something to do with her hair. Maybe it was having been abroad in the overseas territories for so long that drew her to the style. Daigo's wife seemingly always wore her hair in an old-fashioned kind of shinon, known as a icho gaishi, the inverted ginkgo leaf, which she would pair with rather somber looking kimonos. She was a handsome woman with fine, slender features, but there was a certain sharpness about her face. It made her look too prim, too aloof, perhaps a little mean. Ultimately, however, none of the other women in the neighborhood could hold a candle to her, and so all of the patrons of the Black Cat had their sights on her. So she was beautiful, but also a bit scary. There were, of course, the other girls who worked there. Besides the living girl Okimi, there were 2 girls who would come and go: Kayoko and Tame. A country girl of only 17, Okimi still had no experience in the ways of the world. She had not yet even learned how to apply face powder properly. And while she did serve in the bar, Oshige would not let her take any customers. Indeed, it seemed that Oshige had kept her as a maidservant and not as that other kind of woman commonly found in the area. Dot dot dot. Keiko claimed to be 23 and Tame said she was 22, but there's no guarantee that either of them was telling the truth. They both wore equally garish makeup and equally disgraceful Western clothes, but while Tame had a figure that made one wonder what all the fuss was about, what all the fuss was about food shortages, Kyoko was as thin as a grasshopper and prided herself on good looks. What's up, Scam? So all five of these people were here at the Cafe until a week ago. I see. And do we know where they all are now? That shouldn't be difficult, sir. The Itojimas and Okimi have obtained a change of address certificate, while Kyoko and Tame are due to come back here once the renovation work is complete. So none of them is a match for the body then. Hasegawa's eyes bulged as he stared back at the chief inspector. It looked as though the very notion had never occurred to him. Sorry, sir, I should have mentioned, ever since the Itojimas moved out, I've seen Okimi, Kyoko, and Tame from time to time. With Kyoko and Tame, it was on the 14th, the day the Black Cat closed. I ran into them on the street and asked whether they had stopped working. They said yes, but added that they'd start again just as soon as the bar reopened. They said that the new owner had been keen for them to stay on or something like that. As for Okimi, I saw her the day before that at the local council office. She'd gone there to get her change of address certificate. She said she'd been given the sack, so she was going to stay with her aunt in Meguro. And what about Oshige? The owner's wife? Now, let me see. Well, sir, you did say the dead woman had been killed about 3 weeks ago, didn't you? I'm sure I'd have heard about it if she'd gone missing before the shut of the bar on the 14th. But I'm forgetting. I did run into her just after that. That's right, it was on the evening of the 14th. As you know, sir, my police box is located just as you come out of the side street. I was standing in front of it, you see, and Mr. and Mrs. Itojima hurried past together. I remember thinking that they were moving out at last, so it must have been the evening of the 14th. Yes, I see. So then, the body can't be that of anyone from the Black Cat. Incidentally, do you happen to know where the Itojimas moved? Quite a way away, sir. They moved to Kobe. Kobe, eh? For a few moments, the chief... That scared the shit out of me. For a few moments, the chief inspector just sat there, lost in thought. But suddenly he leaned in and said, "One last thing, Constable. This may be the most crucial question of all. Under what pretext did the Itojimas decide to give up the bar? What are the neighbors saying?" Well, that's just it, sir. Everybody thought it was a rather odd decision. Of course, businesses like this are always a little murky. They're certainly not as much fun as they seem. But by all accounts, the Black Cat was a real hit. So when people heard they were selling up, it apparently came quite as quite a shock. Not only to the neighbors, but to Kyoko and Tame as well.
Who's Pika Peach?
Who is Pika Peach? Being the only one who lived with the owners, Okimi also seems to have had some inkling of what was going on. But then there's also what she said when I saw her at the council office. As mentioned earlier, the Itojimas were returnees from China. Okimi had no idea where exactly in China they had been, but she said that it was some out-of-the-way part of northern China. However, when the war ended, all the Japanese had been repatriated, and so the Itojimas made their way from the northern hinterlands to Tientsin. Whether they got separated along the way or later on when they were being put onto ships, the two of them did not return to Japan together. Oshige made it back around 6 months before her husband. That was funny. The fate of a woman on her own, without any possessions, a woman who had, moreover, spent a long time in overseas territories and had no acquaintances back in Japan, was probably a foregone conclusion. Oshige found her way back into a cabaret in Yokohama. However, she was quite a looker and had skills to match. She caught herself a man soon enough. He was a builder down in Yokohama, and he was practically bursting with new yen. She took on the role of this man's mistress and was able at last to make a nest for herself. The only snag was that her husband, Daigo, eventually returned. Okimi did not know the ins and outs of what happened next, but Oshige was forced to leave her wealthy patron, and with the money she received from him, she bought a share of the Black Cat. Businesswoman. Seemingly, however, the reality was that Oshige didn't make a clean break with her lover until recently. She would meet him from time to time, and when her husband found out about this, there was trouble. Even so, Oshige continued to meet her lover, and her husband was in no position to do anything about it. After all, it was only because of his wife that the penniless returnees could put food on the table. Besides, the husband had a woman of his own. ... Oh, and who was that? She was another returnee from China, sir. As I mentioned, Daigo returned to Japan a little after his wife did, and it seems that he met this woman on board the boat back. Apparently, they lived together for a time while Daigo was trying to find his wife. And not only that, sir, but there are rumors that even after he and his wife reunited, he continues to see this woman from time to time. So they're both playing. I take it you learned this all from Okimi? That's right, sir. But how did Okimi come by all these details, I wonder? She heard this all from Mrs. Itojima. Oshige was using her as a spy, you see. There was one time, apparently, when she ordered Okimi to follow Daigo and find out where he was meeting this woman. So Oshige was fully aware of this woman's existence then. What happened when she sent Okimi to follow him? Okimi was very proud of herself for that, sir. If I remember rightly, it happened something like this. Owing to the recent shortages of food and drink, the Black Cat would often find itself having to close for business, and it was then that Oshige would inevitably head out on her own. Needless to say, it was her lover that she was off to see. Knowing this full well, her husband, who was left back at home, would always fall into a black mood. Not ordinarily a man who would use harsh words, he would gulp down sake by the liter and lash out at Okimi. There would always be an argument when Oshige returned home. But one day, Daigo's attitude suddenly changed. When his wife went out, he started to grow restless and began to head out himself. Okimi thought this was strange. There was definitely something odd about the master's behavior. She informed her mistress of this discreetly, whereupon a thought seemed to occur to Oshige. Next time I go out and he does likewise, follow him. So that's just what she did, sir. And when she saw him with another woman, who was she, this other woman? I understand that she was in her mid-20s, very flashily dressed. She made quite the impression, apparently. Bobbed hair, heavy lipstick, might have been taken for a dancer or a chorus girl. Daigo met her at Shinjuku Station, where they caught a train to Inokashira and ducked into a strange-looking house. All of this Okimi reported back to Oshige. Furious and frustrated, Oshige said that it must have been Ayuko, a woman who formerly worked at the Sunshine Dance Hall and with whom her husband had traveled back to Japan. Damn it, she said. He still hasn't broken it off with her. And so that night, an almighty row erupted between Oshige and her husband. It didn't end there. From then on, things took a turn for the worse, and there was a constant strife between the couple. Sooner or later, Oshige began to reflect on her predicament. Well, she said, I think we ought to put an end to all this. She apparently used to say that she didn't mind being poor, so as long as she and her husband lived happily together. But with all the problems they'd had since coming back to Tokyo, staying together was hopeless. She said she wanted to go somewhere far away. And that's when he announced all of a sudden that he was closing the place. Okimi said she wasn't all that surprised. Thank you, Tier 3. I would love to be a baby tiger. This was the owners before it closed for renovation. So I'm thinking that they sold, it closed, and new people bought it. But I don't think we've met the new people yet. For a few moments, as he arranged all the details in his mind, the chief inspector said nothing. The scenario itself was nothing new. It was a common enough story among people like this. But even so, a curious chill ran through the chief inspector. He could not help thinking that beneath the surface there lurked more peculiar darkness. This mistress of Daigo's, this Ayuko, you said she worked at the Sunshine Dance Hall, is that right? What about Oshige's lover? His name's Shunroku Kazama, and he's the boss of the Kazama Construction Group. The chief inspector made a note of the name in the pocketbook. Well, Constable, I think I've got a pretty good idea of the situation in the Itojima household, although I do wonder about this Nicho fellow. That's the monk, right? Nicho. Hi, Peanut. Hi. There's something not quite right about him, don't you think? That's who we met, like, first. Yeah. He is well known for being a little eccentric, if that's what you mean, sir. But then he has his master to think about. You see, the Renge Inn is quite important in these parts. All the land around here, including this land, belongs to the temple. There used to be a lot of monks there, but all of them were drafted into the army and either died in battle or haven't yet returned. So now there are only two of them in that enormous temple, Nicho and the old master Niso. Niso? Nicho is quite young. I'd imagine he must be in his mid-20s. So by rights he ought to have been drafted, but he avoided it because he had polio as a child and was left with a bad leg. That said, ever since before the war, old Niso has been afflicted with palsy, and he is practically bedridden these days. So never mind all the things Nicho has done for the parishioners. He is also does everything from washing and cooking to collecting rent. You must understand he is the quiet type. A man of few words, speaks rarely and only when necessary. Still, there's no denying it, given the sort of area this is. The establishments where the rent has been collected are all of a certain nature, so to speak. Some of the women even make advances on him half jokingly, but it's no use, of course. Nietzsche's quirk have become something of a local legend. He may be a little eccentric, sir, but I think he's harmless enough. Yeah. Just then the front door rattled. Realizing that the workman had arrived, the chief inspector got to his feet. Oh my god, Goo! Thank you so much for the gift sub. Thank you. Tier 2! Holy, thank you. Enjoy the stream without the ads, because ads suck. The workman arrived. The chief inspector got to his feet and told him to go around to the back of the property, whereupon he himself made his way there too, but via the Toriniwa. Excuse me, Chief Inspector? Mirai's face appeared from the tatami room at the back. Ah, Mirai, have you found anything? Mirai's the detective. The chief inspector removed his shoes and stepped up into the sitting room. Without a word, Mirai pulled back the thin usuberi mat that had been pushed up against the wall. When he saw what lay beneath it, the chief inspector gulped. There, on the tatami, hidden by the mat, were sticky traces of blood that looked as though somebody had tried to clean them up. So it was here that the crime was committed then. Mirai nodded, then pointed to the tatami mat in front of the built-in wardrobe just behind the Engawa veranda that faced out into the back garden. If you look at the tatami mat over here, sir, you can clearly see the indents where a chest of drawers stood. Only, why would anybody place a chest of drawers in front of a built-in wardrobe? I believe these two mats must have been swapped recently, but even so, take a look at this, sir. A sheet of newspaper had been pasted to the sliding door of the wardrobe, just below the handle. I had a job getting it off, but I just about managed it in the end. Mirai gingerly picked up the corner of the paper to reveal a dark blood stain soaked into the wood. It's only a working hypothesis, but I imagine there was a struggle between the victim and her assailant in this room. The victim had tried to escape into the garden, but was struck from behind with the hatchet. Apropos of which, just look at the date on the newspaper, the 27th of February. Nobody would ever leave the blood smeared over the wardrobe like that for all to see, so this crime must have taken place on the 27th at the latest. Then again, they probably have used whatever newspaper was closest to hand, so I suppose it could have happened a little after that as well. The paper might not have been that day's, in which case the murder would have taken place on or a little after the 27th, up to say the 2nd or the 3rd. Well, that would certainly be consistent with the body's state of decay. But then that would mean that the Itojimas were leaving with the corpse of the woman they killed for around 2 weeks. Living, not leaving. Living with the corpse for about 2 weeks. As he contemplated the inhumanity of this couple, which defied description, a chill ran down the chief inspector's spine. Bam, bam, bam. All right. That was chapter 3. And I have to go make HelloFresh. So I'm gonna love you and leave you. I will clip this, so if you missed it or were fading in and out, you can have it for next time. I'm gonna go cook. I love you so much, and I will see you tomorrow. Good night, good night, good night, good night.